Hi, this is David Davis from Actual Tech Media. We're here at VMworld 2015, and I'm proud to be joined by Gina Minks, who's the Product Marketing Manager for Spanning. How you doing, Gina?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
Great, great. So thanks for joining us today to help us learn a little bit more about Spanning. It's a company that I hadn't heard of before I met you recently, and you told me about your new role at Spanning, and I'd like to learn more. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Spanning is and what you do?
Okay, cool. So I'm a product marketing manager. There's two of us. I do the Office 365 suite, and my colleague does Salesforce and the Google suite that we have. So Spanning's a born in the cloud application, which is one of those terms. But all it really means is we develop and run the app completely in the cloud. We use web services to create little workers that interact with whatever APIs each of those SaaS applications hang out, and use those to back up the data that people who are working and living in those apps every day, they put there and they rely on that to get their business done.
Yeah, so when you initially told me it was a backup or data protection, tool, I pictured the typical infrastructure backup tool. You download, install, you back up your vSphere hosts or whatever it might be. But this is completely different. This is backup as a service, if you will. I guess it's in the cloud, and it's talking to other cloud applications and protecting the data from those cloud applications. So bringing it back into Spanning for data protection and long-term retention and archiving?
More for that for archiving and long-term retention, yes. But I think the bigger thing is for immediate recovery. So here's the need for it. So I could probably explain it better from the Office 365 area. So I'll start with that lens. In Office 365, right now we support email. We'll have calendars in OneDrive very, very soon. I don't want to give dates because I'll jinx everybody and they'll be mad at me. But what happens is when you move to a SaaS application, and I think Exchange is actually a really good example. When it's on premises, you're responsible for everything. You're responsible for the servers, for the storage, for the application itself, for the users, for the data, right? And you're responsible for, okay, what could happen in my environment to make us have data loss? So, well, we could have a fire, we could have a power outage, somebody could cut the cable, so we have to have this in a second location as well. So we have our DR location. We probably will want to figure out how we're going to do archiving because that's a lot of disk space. So do we want to put it to tape? Do we want to have a disk, solution for archiving and a separate application for that? You're responsible for all of it. When you go to a SaaS provider, and let's keep going with Exchange, Microsoft takes care of all of the data center components, the hardware, the networking, the OS, the virtual machines that it runs on, which is Hyper-V for 365, the Exchange software itself. So you go from a point where you're responsible for all of this stuff to a point where you don't get to touch any of that. So you don't get to do an EDB snapshot. You don't get to log into the Hyper-V machines. You don't get to do anything with the software, which is a good thing. That's why you're moving to the SaaS provider for them to take care of that.
Right.
They take care of anything that could happen to your data in that scenario. So any DR situation that's going to happen, Microsoft has it pretty locked down. If it's something to do with what they're responsible for, they're going to make sure that that data isn't lost. So they do a good job of protecting your data for what they're responsible for. What they're not responsible for is administering the application, the users, and the data in general. And all three of those SaaS providers will say that in their SLAs. They are not responsible for your data. You're ultimately responsible for it. Microsoft in particular doesn't have any sort of recovery. So depending on how you set the policies, there are certain ways you can get to where the data is always there. For example, if you use litigation hold to constantly have all copies of any email there, which is another kind of story. Maybe we can talk about that in a minute. Salesforce does the same thing. Salesforce gives you, if it's within 90 days, they will help you recover if you give them $10,000 first.
Wow.
And Google will flat out tell you if you've deleted it, it's gone, because it's your data.
Yeah.
So if you think, and that kind of makes people think, well, that doesn't seem right. My data's there. I'm paying them money to host this for me. But if you think about it, if you have data and you issue a delete command, you're expecting them to actually delete it. You're not expecting them to squirrel it away over here just in case you say, oh my God, no, I didn't mean it. Recover that for me. So they take, if it's an authorized user, they're going to go ahead and execute whatever command that is. So unfortunately, an authorized user could be, not unfortunately, it can be your users, which they still can do things that they would normally do to accidentally delete something. When it was on-prem, if somebody deleted an entire data folder in Exchange, they would say, "Oh my God, I'm the VP. I have to have the folder back."
Right.
And you would run and get your snapshot and be like, "This crazy VP." You put it back, everything would be good. You can't do that anymore, right? And Microsoft doesn't have any way for you to do that and very quickly recover the data and put it back in the application the way it was. Your admins can do things. We like just reading cases and talking to customers about what people have done. One of the things is setting retention policies. Mm-hmm. So if you set a retention policy for your entire organization for 2 years for email, that 2 years in one day, all the email's gone. Wow. And it's poof gone. It's not on, they don't back it up. There's not a backup tape from Microsoft to even go and get. Once it's gone, it's gone. Or you could have things like CryptoLocker. Users are still gonna click onto bad links. That's what they do. But in this case, if you don't have some kind of way to back up that data, mm-hmm. you don't have a way to go back to a last known good place with your backups. Right. You're gonna have to pay the ransom or figure something else out. You're screwed. So as long as if Microsoft sees or any SaaS provider, that's what they have to do. They protect your privacy by honoring the commands that come in. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. So what we do is we take a backup once a day. If you want to take more, you can kick off a manual one mm-hmm. Of your data. You can return to any point in time at that point and see the data that you want to restore. Users can do it themselves. So our company was built by people who were software people, and they just mm-hmm. wanted to make this simple for everybody. Why is anybody going to a backup admin? Good. So a user can go and restore their own data. You just do a search. You do a search for time. You can do a search for topic. You find where the email is. It will put it back in Exchange. It puts it into a recovered folder, right. And you're able to put it back where it goes. So you can either do an item, an entire folder, the entire mailbox, whatever you need to do. The other thing we do that's kind of cool is we do cross-user restores for all of our products. And Microsoft, I think, is really cool because if you have a user leave the company, if you decide, I need that license and I'm going to assign it to the new person coming in for the role, mm-hmm. you have 30 days to get that data someplace else. And it's not always a very easy process to do that. So your choices are find the hard way to restore it, lose the data forever, or use something like Spanning where you do a couple of clicks and do cross-user restore to the new person coming in or to his boss or just somewhere so the data isn't lost.
Well, I mean, from an end user perspective, I really like that because I have data protection for my own mm-hmm. data in case I email it, so I'm sort of empowered. And as an administrator, I really like that because one is I think most admins don't know that their data is not somehow protected by Google Apps and Office 365. In fact, it would be my assumption that it would be protected, but I haven't looked too far into it, and I bet most admins mm-hmm. don't think about it too much. So yeah, you really need this, and admins and companies of all sizes who are moving to cloud applications really need this sort of data protection, that Spanning's offering. So how is it? What different applications did you say it's available for, and how's it typically priced?
So Office 365, which is all of our offerings are per user per year, and this is all the list price. So this is definitely something people want to contact us at Spanning and let us talk to them about the big organization or our salespeople at EMC as well. Okay. And talk about what their specific cases are. But it's $48 per user per year. For Office 365, also for Salesforce, it's the same price, and for Google Apps, it's $40 per user per year.
Very cool, very cool. So I know we're here live from VMworld. What have you seen at the show that you found interesting or exciting?
Aside from all the parties,
yeah.
I think the most interesting, there are a couple of things. One, I got to see Steve Harrod yesterday. There's a whole DevOps area in the Hang space, which I find fascinating. The first thing I find fascinating is that it is so bright. I don't know any developers that would have it that bright. So that's the first funny kind of thing to me. But it's interesting watching VMware actually talking about, doing things in a more modern kind of way, which I think is really great. The second thing is, listening to all the announcements from VMware and then talking to customers and partners, and just the confusion about what we do and kind of what's being offered. So since we work by the APIs, we are not really backing up anything on vSphere or in Air. And the reason why is because, if you've got Exchange on a VM, up in a cloud, then you're going to be installing Exchange. And there's probably a better solution for that, like Avamar VE that just came out is probably a great solution for that. We only are going to work, we only work with the SaaS applications right now. I'm not sure that it makes a lot of sense for us to use APIs on something that's there, but that's actually a question for my PM. I know they're talking about like what makes sense and how do we do this and where do we go with this, because I think those questions are going to come more and more.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of fascinating to me. It's just listening to that. And then, I was an admin for a long time and I've done data protection forever. So for me, just talking to customers, because I know I'm in my organization, I'm the person that came in as the enterprise person. They're all cloud people. They've been doing DevOps and they are just amazing to work with and to deal with because they've got it down. And so to watch how and listen to them talk about how we technically do it, it's really awesome. It's really cool to be part of that. But there's a lot of questions I have coming from the same place you're coming from being an enterprise, data center person. What happens when you don't have a data center? And how do those things change? And it's not like we're oblivious to there's something really cool and technical going on over on the cloud side of the world. We're just so busy taking care of the stuff that's on-prem and the stuff that we have to keep going and manage. And so, but there is like a little bit of a bridge and understanding that everybody has to have us going over there and also the cloud people coming over here back to reality where everybody's living right now. So I think that's interesting, is having those conversations and helping people realize like we don't even have a data center where I work. We don't have networking equipment. How do you do work? We connect to the internet and work on the cloud. That's what we do. So very different.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and born in the cloud, that's the first time I think I've really heard that term. And so, I mean, when people ask you, well, do you have a data protection product for vSphere? One response might be, why do you need vSphere? When you have the cloud, you have, VMware's talking about vCloud Air and Unified Hybrid Cloud and OneCloud, all these different, clouds. And I'm sure there's a lot of traditional data protection vendors who are getting the reverse question, which is, well, how are you going to back up my Google Apps and my Office 365? And, so it sounds like Spanning's really ahead of the curve when it comes to data protection. You're already backing up the cloud applications, as so many traditional companies are slowly, moving their applications to the cloud. You're already there protecting it.
We are. And I think that's one of the other things I find interesting. I gave a presentation just explaining SaaS, because I think, and I'm a product marketer, and I don't think the marketing side of the world has done a really good service with the terms that are bandied about, right? So if you sit down and you talk to somebody, okay, so what is IaaS and what do those mean? And what does that mean for you if you're responsible for protecting your company's data?
Right.
So heard shadow IT a whole lot, right? But in my presentation that I gave, it's like a third of application spend right now is on SaaS.
Wow.
That's not shadow IT. And Microsoft Office 365 is the number one SaaS application, more used SaaS application in the world. Salesforce is the number one private SaaS company. I bet you every single company here that's here at VMworld has Salesforce at least.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure most of them are at least thinking about, well, should we go to 365? Trying to make those decisions. It's not shadow IT anymore. And so like especially coming from this world of, being on the true ops admin side, is I think that this is a chance for IT, even if, it's going to be a ways out before they implement. It's a chance for them to be the heroes and step up and really understand, okay, shadow IT is happening. It's going to happen whether you try to or not. Is there a way that you can put your arms around it and enable your users to go and do what they need to do? Because that's really why we have them going around IT. They're like, you're taking too long. You're never going to let us do it. This is the way to do it. We're going to go do it and put it on our credit card and we're gone. So pay attention and just kind of really understand what this is. Understand that it's not a bad thing. And for these big applications, there are ways to protect the data, be able to enable your users to have the data that they're using, that they need relying on, they're going around you to use. that they'll have it if something goes wrong.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So a lot of education needs to be done, really, for not just for the admins, I think, but also for the end users who probably don't even know that their data really isn't protected, in the cloud. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you educating us on spanning backup, what you all do, and really what's coming in the future and what companies need to be aware of when it comes to data protection. Thank you, Gina.
Thanks a lot. You'll have to come visit us in Austin.
That'd be awesome.
You should come.
Thank you.